Hey everybody, how you guys doing? So today's video is going to be a little bit of a rant. I just want to put that out there in the beginning, let you guys know. Um, yeah, so I have been set up with America's Job Centers. This is today's Monday. They actually did call me back today and said they don't have anything at the moment, but they do have some future prospects coming up. They had one job that was going to start in June, but that's a little bit too far out for me. I need to work today. I need to start working now, not in June. In June would be cool if I had a job in June, but I really need to start working today. So yeah, but it's cool because they're actually putting the effort into finding me some work, which is really, really cool. So I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. In 2 days from now, I'll have my intake interview with Department of Rehabilitation, and they also are going to try to find me a job and send me to school. I also today talked to my friend Mitch, who is the counselor for California State University, San Marcos, which is a school that I went to. I took courses there, and I have some certificates from those courses right here in my room that I've actually went and updated my Cal Jobs. I went and updated my Cal Jobs information to put those certificates on there as well. But that's not what this video is about today. I am very frustrated with the job search and application process of today compared to when I was young. I want to talk to you first about when I was young. I'm talking about my late teens, early 20s, when I was out there doing the hustle, putting foot to ground out there applying for jobs. The whole job process back then, from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, is way different than today. And let me explain why. Let me start off with when I was young, in my late teens, early 20s, okay? When you wanted to find a job, when you wanted to work, back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, there was no real online. In fact, in the 70s and 80s, there was no online job application at all. It was a paper application you filled out. You had your resume, you printed it out, you took it in there with you, and you did the hustle. You were out there putting foot to ground to get that job, okay? Here's one of the reasons why I think that is a much better process. Number one, you're actually out there trying to find a job. So you're showing motivation and determination to get a job. You're showing your excitement. You're showing your enthusiasm about getting that job, Number one. Number two, you dressed appropriately to go to that interview or to even fill out that application because you wanted to give a good first impression with these people that hopefully would be hiring you. That's what you did, okay? Number three, you went in there with a positive attitude because they don't want to hire someone who's a negative, potentially going to cause a problem at their company. You went in there with a positive attitude. So you dressed appropriately, you showed motivation, determination, and enthusiasm, and you went in there with a positive attitude, okay? You actually filled out an application right there. You handed it in right there with your resume. And most of the time, especially in the 80s, you would get an interview that day because you turned in your application that day. Now, these people know who you are. And then once you do that application, turn it in right there, and you get that interview, now it's based on your resume and your application as to your work experience, how long you worked at your last job, the longevity of how long you worked at the last job, what qualifications you have, what you did at your last job, and then of course they'll probably end up calling the last job and seeing how you worked there, how your work was there, whether you did good work, whether it was you were just laid off because there was a shortage and they had to cut, down the employment workforce because they didn't have enough money. They were going through hard times, whatever it might have been. or if it was a temporary agency and it was just a temporary job. Like you were there for 6 months and that's what they needed you for. And then you moved on to the next job, whatever it might've been. You were right there letting these people know that you were enthused about getting a job and you were motivated and determined to do a good job for them. And with your your attire looking good and your positive attitude, they were like, man, this guy's, a good fit. This guy's not a good fit. They would determine it right there. Nowadays, it's an online process with a psychological examination. And I'm going to get into the psychological examination here in a second. But now it's an online process. All taken care of by either AI recruitment or RPA, which is recruitment process automation. Okay? In 2025, it's so much different than 30, 40 years ago, so much different. This RPA, or recruitment process automation, or AI recruitment, it just blows my mind. I think it's bullshit, but it blows my mind. So you put in your application. What's on your application? You apply. Generally, people apply for jobs that they qualify for. So your work history, as you put it in, qualifies you for this position. But if your keywords aren't right, if you don't put in the right keywords, your application could just get tossed to the side. So 200 applications go into a job, go into a company. They're hiring 5 people. Out of those 200 applications, I guarantee you they're only polling 25. Not because they actually looked at every physical application and said, this guy looks good, let's put him on. It's because some automated system said, these guys didn't have the right keywords, whoop, you're gone. So 175 applications get thrown away because of an automated selection system. And you'll never know if that was a good person to work for you or not. You'll never know because your automated recruitment system tossed them aside because of bad keywords, or the wrong vibe came from the application. There's also the thing where you actually got to hire. They actually recommend that you hire someone to do your resume for you today, because they're going to say, okay, this is good, put that in. This is bad, let's leave this out. This looks okay, but let's embellish it a little bit. Let's exaggerate on this a little bit because we need it to sound better than what you actually wrote. And you were being truthful when you wrote it, but now you got to exaggerate it or embellish it a little bit to make it sound better, so that system will pick you up and help you get your foot in the door. Because if you don't do it, you're just going to end up in the pile of trash that the AI guy said, the robot said, oh, he's not good. Number one. Number two, let's talk about the psychological examination. Okay, it's a series of questions in maybe 2 or 3 different subjects or topics. They ask you these questions, okay? So a question might be, if you get hired and you're on the job and you see somebody stealing from the company, are you going to report them to the supervisor? Well, an honest person, a good worker, will definitely report them to the supervisor, right? Yeah. So you would say yes to that one, of course. But then they ask you this question, not just once, but a couple times, if not more, in the topics, down the line, okay? So this question is something that really caught my eye, and it actually showed up a couple times in the questionnaire. You come in for your shift and you notice that your area is dirty. It hasn't been cleaned. The shift before you, the guy who ran the shift before you, didn't clean his area like he was supposed to. So here's your answers for you to choose from. Pick one. 1, are you going to clean up the area, and then when you see that employee again, let them know that they didn't clean up the area and that they need to? Number 2, are you going to clean up the area and report it to your supervisor? Or number 3, are you going to clean up that area and not tell anybody? Okay? That's one way that they put it. Then they'll reword it, restructure it, and not just the question, but also the answers. Now, people analyze things differently. Not everybody is extremely analytical. So when you reword it, and you reword all of those, and reword and restructure that question and those answers, someone's going to see it as different, and they may answer it a little bit different over here than they do over here because it's different to them. Okay? Now you're going to fail this psychological exam that they're giving you, and it is a psychological exam. They also tell you in the beginning there are no right or wrong answers. Bullshit. There is a right or wrong answer. There is. Because if you answer it one way over here and another way over here, you failed that question because now they think you're a liar or you're not being truthful, and you fail the psychological exam. In my opinion, okay? I think that the process of doing applications and these psychological examinations that they give you while you're doing these applications, it's not with every application, but it is with most these days. I think that is just ridiculous. I think that it leaves a lot of room for inaccuracy, and also you may be throwing out applications of people who are going to be a very hard worker for you because your automated system deem them to not have proper keywords in their application, just for them to get their foot in the door to begin with. Then when they take the psychological exam, now your automated system where you're restructuring questions and answers and putting it into different topic areas, okay? Because they didn't analyze it the same over here as they did over here, and they gave you a different answer. It's failing them on a questionnaire where there's no wrong answers. Right? Can you believe that? I don't get it. I really don't get it. Everybody thinks different. Everybody analyzes things different. Everybody's thought process is different. When you reword something or restructure something from here to here, and you or your system thinks it's the same question and the same answer that should be chosen, but somebody analyzed it different, or their thought process saw it as something completely different, you may be weeding out one of the best employees you'll ever have. And I just want to ask you guys the big question. Do you think it's easier to get a job today than it was back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s? Because in my opinion, if not 10 times harder, more, it's much harder today to get a job today than it was back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you put your foot to the ground, you went out there and did your hustle, you dressed appropriately, went in there with a positive attitude, and you had your work experience there to show who you were. Peace and Godspeed, everybody. I love you guys. We'll see you again in the next video. Like and subscribe if you enjoy this content, and leave a comment below. Would love to hear from you what you think about this question. Is it harder to get a job today than it was yesterday? Bye-bye.